It seems that we have, as Debbie Abrahams was saying, a long-term trend of unemployment increasing every month. It now stands at 4.7% and 1.67 million people out of work. And therefore it was perplexing to me, and I hope it might be perplexing to you, that when we did our inquiry on the 2nd of July into job centres, we found that there were 2,100 fewer work coaches than there had been the year before. Now, I accept that the DWP have had difficulty recruiting them, but given that I'm sure it must be your government stated objective to try and help people back into work wherever possible, and job coaches play a key part in that, it was surprising to find that not only was there fewer job coaches, their initial interview time had been cut from 50 to 30 minutes, with proposals to cut them even further. Now that means the moment the work coach gets into a room with the jobless person, they've got to establish who they are, get all their data, their criteria, their skills, their wishes, how they would get back into work, all in half an hour, which if it had been previously deemed that it was necessary to have 50 minutes, I don't see how quite that could be done in 30 minutes. And when we questioned DWP on this, they told us this was based on data from their own employees dating back to 2015 to 18. They had not done any surveys on the people trying to get back into work themselves. This really does seem peculiar. And we do know that the interwork rate declined from 9.7 in 2021 to 8.2 in 23-4. And I imagine it will decline again this year with the lack of these job coaches. So could you tell us how that might be reversed?
Yeah, I mean, let me go back to the beginning of your question, if I may. The employment rate is up 0.8% over the year. The unemployment rate is also up slightly. Now, you may think that that's a slight contradiction, but as you will know, what that indicates in the data on my own analysis is that the inactivity numbers have gone down, so those not even looking for work have begun to look for work, hence the unemployment figure has gone up at the same time as the employment figure has gone up. That therefore puts a great spotlight on the very problem you've identified, which is whether job centres are doing what we expect of them in terms of helping those that are now looking for work and those that have been looking for work into work. I think we have already started the programme of changing the way job centres work, because there's not enough time coaching and helping people into work. I also don't think that many businesses are actually going to the job centre when they have a vacancy. I've talked to lots of businesses myself and said, when you do have a vacancy, are you putting that at the job centre so we can match up the local jobs that are available with those that are looking for work? And the answer is most of them don't go to the job centre. So there's a lot of change in the job centres that we've already started, and we need to see through for the very reasons you've identified.
So, Prime Minister, I don't think you quite answered what I asked. And you said, I think, that the job coaches were going to be given more time. In fact, not only are the initial interviews cut from 50 to 80 minutes, the follow-up interviews are also cut considerably as well. So in other words, people seeking to get into work are finding it more and more difficult because they're getting less and less advice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take away the point you're putting to me. I'm not across the details of how many minutes are allocated to the coaches in job centres, but the broad principle that you're putting to me, as it were, I agree with, which needs to be more support for people to get into work, and we need to change the way job centres work altogether, in my view, and change the very nature of them, which is part of the work that we're doing. But I will take away the particular issue you put in terms of the minutes allocated and get a fuller answer to you.
Sorry, final question for me. You said just then you want to change the way job centres work. Do you want to just elucidate on what's in your mind on that?
Yeah, I don't think most businesses are advertising in job centres, and I think there's a basic mismatch between what is genuinely available in an area for those that are going to a job centre and that which they're being presented with. And I think it's a problem we've got to sort out. Okay. That is because people don't have faith in the job centres. Businesses don't, so you haven't got the job centre doing the job it's intended to do. I also want to, whether it's minutes allocated or whatever it is, I do think there's more support And we've allocated money to support people into work, and that needs to be used much better in my view. In terms of the precise minutes allocated at face time or sport time, I'm not across the detail of that, but absolutely clear that we do need that more support. They're the two fundamental changes that are needed for job centres, to my mind.